Welcome, everybody, to the ACCUSTATS arena. We've got a special match for you tonight. Pijus Labutis versus the great Fedor Gorst. This is the 2024 Derby City Classic 9-ball division, and we are in round 12. We are down to 7 players. John Mora got the bye. Filler drew Jason Shaw, and Roland Garcia drew Vitali Patsura. I am your host, Scott Frost, a.k.a. The Freezer. I'll be bringing this action to you the best I can. It's 2 a.m. right now here at the Derby City Classic. This should be a good match. These guys have put in a little work this week. We have a long Banks event, then a one-pocket event, then we finish up with the 9-ball event. Gorst in game number 1 to break. Yeah, and that's a great sign early for Gorst. He didn't come up with a good shot on the 2, but he got the 1 down, and we've seen players on this TV table, possibly due to the dryness or lights, struggling to get the 1 down in the middle. Well, that wasn't a sign for Gorst on this break-off, but he does have trouble on the blue 2. They will start out with a 30-second shot clock. They get 1 extension per game. It'll be an automatic 30-second extension if they use the initial time clock. Can he see enough of the 2 here to do something defensive or even chip the 9 in? And he was going at the 9. Oddly enough, it's landed a little awkward, just because the cue ball might be tracking towards the 7 or this lower left corner, unless Pijus can maybe catch it rail first. Labutis with 0 losses. Fedor lost to Naoki Oi in round 10. Oi is obviously out of the event. Very nicely controlled safety there. Behind the 4 by Labutis. Labutis from Lithuania. I tell you what, he's really impressed me this week. His demeanor around the table is just so consistent. He's got a great stroke. And you're looking to get separation. Well, I believe he's done that. Fedor, a little gesture of apology. He's acting like he can see a piece of this too. He had to twist around the 7. I think he was trying to catch it rail first and caught it going in. You'll notice the pace of Gorst seems pretty quick. I don't think that's due to the shot clock. I just think that's due to how much pool he's played this week. How much more comfortable you can get hitting balls. If you're into the 12th round of the 9-ball, well, you've played a lot of pool. They started with 500 players. He could almost stop here or punch forward just a little. Is he going to go into the 7? Yeah, just punch forward. Fedor, in my opinion, has some of the best fundamentals, if not the best in the game. Only thing he'll trick you on is the draw stroke. He'll aim center ball. His final transition, he goes down to the cloth or as low as you can go on the cue ball. So it will trick you at times. But the cue speed is constantly the same. About as consistent as it gets on the tour. Making light work of this rack. Out to the center of the table. Could have used another couple rotations. He'll manage. Two rails out of the top right corner. Just like that, Gorst will take game number 1 against a formidable opponent in Pijus Labutis, the Lithuanian. Mez cues. Shout out to Mez. Professional cues. I've heard a lot about these cues. A lot of great players play with them. And to be honest, I've heard nothing but good things. It's been a grueling event for these guys. You've got to give the fans credit. 2 a.m. They're sticking hard, holding strong. Gorst looking to make the 1 in the right middle again. And just a fraction thick, maybe. This is very awkward. He's going to lay it up on the left long rail. Is it going to leak out? I think Gorst can see a piece of it at worst. Maybe go up behind the 7, up towards the 3. This is all speed. And a little dangerous because of the black 8 in the lower left. This is the only angle I have to work with, so bear with me. I can't quite tell how much of this ball he can see. Oh, wow. Basically played the cue ball, but knew the 1 had a chance of going in the top right all along. Now he's got to come with 1 good shot here on the 2 to the same corner. I do not believe the left middle pocket's in play if he levels out here for the cue ball. I think he's free and clear of that. Yeah, what a clean strike that was as well. Did not see any movement in the body whatsoever. And that's the type of shot that will expose it. Yeah, notice his pace. It's a pretty quick pace around the table. In regards to that, the equipment, playing on 9-foot diamond tables, 860 HR tournament blue, Simona's cloth, 4.5-inch pockets. So they are a little bit more forgiving. Gorst looking extremely comfortable. Dropping over for the green 6. 2 rails out. Go to the 7. In the left middle. Can use a high. Maybe just a touch of running English or left cue ball here. And he is literally running around the table, which you don't see Fedor do too often. Probably just going through the motions here, the wee hours of the morning here in Elizabeth, Indiana, the Horseshoe Casino. And Gorst looks like he's going to take game number 2. 2 games to 0. A little bit about the rules. We are playing Derby City 9-ball. They are playing with the break box. You'll see the two lines up at the top end of the table. That's the widest break box you can get. It's from diamond to diamond. Anything outside of that is illegal. There are no jump cues allowed. 3-foul rule is in effect. You can jump with your playing cue, but that's it. It is a race to 9. A lot of these elite players are going more to the center with the cue ball. He's actually a little wider than normal. He's looking to make the 1 in the right middle. And there he's got it down, but the cue ball is lost. We're going to have our first real good look at Pijus Labutis. With an extremely open table, I see no trouble in the foreseeable future. Pijus is actually a fairly tactical player with a real natural stroke. It's kind of an odd combination. He's got a real nice loose transition, but it seems very mechanical and tactical around the table. Back arm all the way back to the end of the cue. He's tall, say 6'2", pushing 6'3", very slender. And you'll notice the 9 on the left long rail here. So he's got options with the 8. Most likely going to run 2 rails out towards the center. Could go 1 rail up, playing the 8 in the lower right, but I think this is much higher percentage. Now going to come 1 rail out. Besides game number 1, a couple little scratchy defensive plays. So far, fairly flawless. Labutis winning game number 3. Gorst leading 2 games to 1. I will repeat, we are in round 12. We are down to 7 players. John Mora got the bye. On the outside tables, it's Filler versus Jason Shaw. Roland Garcia versus Vitaly Patsura. Gorst lost to Naoki Oi in round 10. And the man at the table, Mr. Labutis, has 0 losses. So you've got to put him as one of the favorites of the event. That extra bullet in this redraw format is massive. So Pijus will be looking to make the 1 in the left middle. The 2 is a random rack, so you rack the 2 randomly. Oh, nicely done. He got the same kiss that Fedor Gorst got. All that said, Gorst scratched in the lower right, Pijus in the lower left. Very, very hard to predict a kiss like that. And look at this Open table here for Gorst. All he really needs to do is get on the 3. Yeah, I'm trying to find a problem here. Is it the 5 to the 6? I don't really think so. He will stay on the shallow side of the 5, meaning somewhere around the line the cue ball is on now. Come 2 rails up into the 6 for the top left corner. Man, the speed looks perfect. Timing looks perfect. His pace around the table is as good as I've ever seen it as far as the quick pace. This young man is a machine. Pretty evident after game number 4, it's going to be Gorst leading 3 games to 1. And so talking about the rack, they're random racking the 2, meaning you have to put it in different positions. These guys are so good. They're playing the 1 on the break. The 9 is racked on the spot. But getting position on the 2 is where it becomes difficult. Shout out to the National Billiard Academy, one of the sponsors of the ACCUSTATS arena. So there you'll see it. The 2 is on the back now. It's going to go for a ride. Very hard to predict where it will end up. And you're expecting, if you're Gorst, to make the 1 in the right middle. Man, he's just high again with the 1. And this time, he's come up dry. The cue ball lands directly behind the 9. And Pijus is calling the rollout or the push. So he will have the opportunity to play this cue ball wherever he feels fit. The oncoming player, which is Fedor Gorst, will have the opportunity to take a look at it, take it from where it lies, or he can pass it back to the initial player. And he's pushed to this bottom rail here. I don't know that there's any value to even seeing the bottom edge of the 1. Fedor's giving it back. I don't even know that Fedor got out of his chair. But there is value to catching the bottom half of this 1. The cue ball's got a lot of protection behind the 9 and the 4. If he can get distance with the 1 somewhere up table. A high cue ball will act as low after contact with the 1. Yeah, like so. He doesn't want to catch the point, though. So big shot here for Gorst to stretch his lead out. If he can get on the blue 2 and get the 1 down, I don't see much slowing him down. I believe the 4 passes the 8 in the lower right. The 5's a little tricky on the left-hand side of the table, but this is the big shot of the rack. And he's caught that a little thin These pockets are forgiving, but they are not that forgiving. So a big miss by Gorst. Game number 5. So a little tricky coming out of that pocket. He caught the point there. That's how that cue ball finished on the rail. Being that they're a little bigger pockets, it's very difficult and easy to catch one of those points coming out of the pocket. He'll be okay on the 2. Just one rail out below the 6. And you'll notice how smooth that transition from Labutis really is when he's going through the ball. Extremely clean. Yeah, and here everything kind of leads to each other. 1 to 2 rails up behind the 7 on the left hand side of the table for the 5. The 6 lays in front of the right middle. And he's made it a little trickier on himself. Elevated directly over the 7 here. So he's just got to get this ball down. How clean was that? Most players would roll that ball in. You know, he could check it up with a low ball, but he pounded it in. Most likely going to draw this back for the 9 in the lower left. Can use the right long rail to control the pace of the cue ball if he'd like. Really, no mistakes after the break or mid-game from either one of these guys, except for the one that was just missed by Gorst. Will that come back to haunt him? Labutis within 1, trailing 3 games to 2. And we can talk about the rack a little bit more. Racking the 9 on the spot makes things a little bit more difficult for these elite players. The game has become so easy that they have to make it challenging. That's where racking the 2 randomly comes into play. Yes, they can predict where the 1 is going. They can make the 1, but they can't really predict what's going to happen with the 2. And every time they break, they're using what's called a cut break. So using whether it's a tip or a little bit more extreme outside English with maybe a little bit of a low ball or a center ball, depending on the adjustments that they have to make. They're hitting 3/4 of the 1, maybe a little bit less, maybe 2/3 of the 1. So there's going to be kisses at play. This is what they want. They want to make these outs more difficult for these guys. Because if you can just powder puff them or soft break them, or break them with a little bit of speed, even beating the break rule, everything is pretty much automatic, especially making the wing ball every game. That's why they've gone to this format. And I think it's the right move. Does he go at the bank in the top left on the 1? Yeah, I don't know. Well, he's hit it real nice. He's going to come away with a good look at the 2. With the 1 missed by Gorst in that top left corner, Labutis with a chance to tie this match up at 3 games apiece. He's going to come short side of the 3 here. Top left long rail. Didn't want to land straight. Might be able to punch that cue ball out a little bit. I don't think he wants to draw it. Yeah, nicely done. Very nicely done. Such a clean striker of the cue ball. Anywhere above where the 5 is now, and he'll be perfect on the 7 in the right middle. That'll work. Both players playing pretty rapid pace, probably about identical, in my opinion, right now, as far as the speed around the table and even on the table. Shot clock, rarely a factor. And after game number 6, Pijus Labutis is going to tie it up at 3 apiece. Got to give credit to Patrick Fleming, Mike Howerton, and the ACCUSTATS Arena crew. They put in a lot of hours this week. This is one of the crown jewels of the tournaments in the United States, the Derby City Classic. The bank pool, the 1 pocket, the 9 ball, and let's not forget the 10-foot tournament, the Bigfoot. There is no other tournament in the world on 9-foot tables that is more grueling than this. Labutis to break in game number 7. Well, something's gone wrong there. The 1 didn't act correct at all. Fedor has a good look at it as well. So I don't know what's gone awry. Maybe he racked himself. It's very possible. These guys put a lot of work into making sure these balls are all touching. And Gorst is going to take a quick break. And we are back. So something went awry on that break for Labutis. Not exactly sure what, but the 1 reacted completely uncharacteristic to the times prior. It literally shot straight over to the diamond just below the left middle pocket. The balls didn't react clean in any way, shape, or form. What could create that? Well, there could have been a gap behind the 1. There could have been a gap behind the 2 balls behind the 1 that's touching the 9. There are a lot of things at play there. Just because we're using a template rack does not mean that the balls are all going to be frozen. You still have to put the work in to make sure that happens. He can thin this one into the left middle, maybe with a bit of check or inside English to hold the line, come one rail up for the blue 2 in the lower left. Yeah, might have caught that a little thicker than he wanted. Yeah, so he's got some distance here. He can hold for the corner on the 3. Very well done. Now he can punch out towards the center if he'd like. Can even come back for the right middle with the 4. Player preference. Yeah, so he's gone to the right middle, but he's overdrawn this a little. Going to come one rail up, or is he playing this in the corner? I think he's going to come one rail up. Is he going to try and come all the way around here? Yeah, and he's landed just short of the 9. So a little fortunate there. He can swerve the 6 into the lower left and hold. This is a dig. He's going to dig deep into the cue ball with a low outside ball. Nice and easy. Let the English turn the 6 in. Yeah, so he's made it a little more difficult than he wanted this rack, but he's managed. Very good recovery by Gorst. He is going to take game number 7. If you want to think about how grueling this event is, just think about this. I think you need to win somewhere around 15 to 16 rounds now to win the 1 pocket. 15 to 16 rounds to win the banks. And it's maybe a little bit more, even up to 17 rounds to win the 9 ball. And then guys like this are also in the Bigfoot. So the Derby City Classic is built for the young man. Oh, and he is really consistent with the 1. But this is what I'm talking about. Nothing guaranteed on the 2. Makes the game less predictable and more difficult for these guys to just run every rack. Does he wrap the cue ball around 2 rails tight behind the 9, or does he decide to go away from it and use the 5? Or yeah, I don't think he would have minded another couple rotations out of that cue ball. This is going to be okay. Actually, leaving the cue ball there is going to make the hit on the 2 a little tougher because he's got to contest with the point in the lower left corner. And he's got a much sharper angle to avoid the 9 going to the 2. Whereas if the cue ball was closer to the 9, he's got a pretty straightforward angle to go to the back of the 2. So that makes sense. The automatic extension was just used. He's going 1 rail to the top. So that tells me that the point is at play in the lower left corner. Down to 10 seconds. And that came off pretty short. Looked like he might have had a little unintended inside English on the cue ball as well. And if you guys were wondering, let's say they're down to 5 seconds, then they get down to 2 seconds. But he gets down on the ball. As long as he stays down on the ball and then shoots the shot while the shot clock is at 0, it is legal. If he's down on the ball and the clock gets to 0, and for some reason he makes an adjustment or decides to get off of the cue ball, well then, that results in a ball in hand for his opponent. Gorst looking to punch 1 rail over to the right long rail, just below the right middle pocket and over above the 4 on your left-hand side of the table. And so well timed. He was aware he didn't want to get straight on that 4. He needed to get back out towards the center for the 5. He's landed perfect. Pretty impressive what this young man has done and what he's doing this event. No jump cues allowed, and I'd say that he is the best in the world with the short stick. And if that was allowed, it would clearly make him even stronger. But I also feel that Fedor's strengths are the grind side of the game. Of course, he can run the balls, he can break and run out. But the other side, when things are tough, or the table's tough, he can grind with the very best, and probably is the very best at that side of the game. And after game number 8, Gorst going to take a 2-game lead at 5 games to 3. Down to 7 players. I will reiterate, Labutis with no losses. Started with 500 players. Shout out to Q-Tech Synergy. In my opinion, the best break cue. And if you haven't tried the Q-Tech jump cue, it's called the Propel. It really is like cheating. This thing takes very little effort, very little energy to get that cue ball off the cloth. Gorst to break. Oh, he has been so consistent with that 1 ball. But once again, the 2 in an awkward position. I believe he can see the top end of it at worst. You can see the traffic down here with the 4, 5, and 8. He can definitely use those to his advantage. If you can chip the thin side of the 2, maybe somewhere up behind the 7 and swing the cue ball down 1, 2 behind this little wall down here, that would be ideal. That all depends on how much he can see of the 2. If he can see more than I think, well, I take all of that back. He's rolling out. Well, he's left Pijus a challenge here. Almost looks like he's got a little bit of an angle to keep the cue ball off of the rail. He would have to take a tough shot on the 3. Interesting push out. I'm not saying it was wrong. Fedor's IQ is clearly higher than mine. This is on the push out. Pijus can give it back if he'd like. And what do you do here? I think you've just got to make this 2. See what's left on the 3. Oh, very, very clever. Just chipped the fine edge of the 2 and brought the cue ball down, avoiding the 7. I didn't know if that was there. I felt like the 7 was a big ball. He avoided that, tickied off the back of the 3, making things very difficult for Labutis. Coming into the back of the 2 with a high ball. Wants to catch it thick. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's terrible by any means from where he was. He'll take it. Fedor looking to roll the 2 past the 9 and use the wall. The 4, 3, 5, and 8. Is that what he just looked at? That's what he elected to do. I don't believe he's found the gap, has he? Oof. Are you looking to... You're not looking to kick to the right side of the 6. Has he found the gap? Wow. Wow. Very misleading, this line, but he did find the gap. He caught a double kiss. Not going to be thrilled with that. Gorst going to have a great look on the 2. Could be some trouble with the 5 and 8. He's almost looking at the 3 like it is tight. Wow, does he have a line here to just come one rail and nudge the 5 open? Play the 4 in the left middle. I think that's what he's looking at. You've got to catch the 5. You do not want to catch the 8 or you'll end up glued behind the 5. Well, he elected not to go into the 5. Is the 8 on? I will say again, guys, this is the only angle I have to work with. It looked to me like the 8 was going to the right long rail of the lower right corner. So I didn't feel like it was straightforward. There is a gap between the 5 and 8, it looks. But maybe the combination is available. Okay. That is not the case. Yeah, and I felt like that was really tough to go that way. Trying to get a read on Labutis' body language. Down to 5 seconds. It's going 2 rails behind the 5. Well, the 5 doesn't pass to the lower right, I don't believe. It does go to the right middle. It's a thin chop. Can he just chip the edge of the 5 and play it to the right long rail and use the 9? He's going to try and use both balls. Yeah, even better. Wow. This is the side of Fedor Gorst's game that I think is superior to a lot of the other elite players. He has, in my opinion, the best cue ball in the game today. That's what makes him such a great one-pocket player. He hasn't played one pocket a lot at all in his career, but yet seems to always be up there with the top 3, top 4 players to live. And it's all because of the cue ball. Wow, and I think that he's found cover with the only ball on the top center side of the table, which is the 7. Going to the top short rail with extreme high left ball. Like to catch this thick, hold the cue ball right there. And that is called a kick and stick. All he's looking for there is what he's done, which is distance. Going to try to use the 8 and 9 here, I believe. Did he get there? It's close. And even if he did, I think Fedor can dig to the left long rail, kicking behind the 5, sending the 5 one rail to the top right long rail up there behind the 7. But if he can catch it going in, he can use these 2 balls, the 8 and 9, as cover. Okay, he's elevating, so I expect him to kick behind this ball. If he can catch it going ball first, that's okay, but really just trying to get the 5 up table. And that's not terrible. One to catch it a little thinner, caught more of the 5 than he planned. See, looking at the bank in the lower right with cover on the 7. Does it play to the lower right? Well, it clearly did play to the lower right. Did he leave the gap, the window? Are the windows open? By the body language, they're wide open. For some reason, I think of Jason Shaw when I see this shot. He levels out so good on this ball. Makes it look so effortless. And so does Fedor Gorst. But he's overpowered it to the top left corner. And that's going to result in ball in hand for Labutis. He's 4 balls away with climbing back within 1. Wow. How do you scratch 1 rail into the top left? He came with a lot of power off that right long rail, juiced it right back up into the top left. Pretty hard to predict that.
You need to leave the center section. We still have matches going.
Labutis, after game number 9, is back to within 1, trailing 5 games to 4. Wow. What a big turnaround that was. Like I said, very hard from that distance. I mean, he was almost frozen to that top rail with the cue ball. He might have had 3 inches. So to power that ball like that and scratch back in the top left, hard to do. And shout out to Simonas Cloth, the longest running in the business. There is no doubt that Simonas is the best cloth in the world for our pool tables. Along with the Aramith pool balls. No better time than the present for Labutis to get the 1 down and a shot on the blue 2. I believe last time he broke his rack eye on him. Everything landed funny, nothing down. Okay, this is a much different result. The 1 didn't get down, but something else did. He's going to have a good look at it. Is he straight? I believe he can punch, play the 2 to the top right. If he's straight or at that awkward angle, he's going to draw towards the 3. I don't think it's a question of if he can make it or not. I think it's a question of how flat he is on the 1. The extension has been used. Yeah, and so he was worried about contacting the 3. Turned out quite nicely. He's 1 good shot away here from tying this match up. All your focus into getting this ball down. Maybe a touch of left. High cue ball. Very, very clean. Very, very clean. Yeah, just back out towards the top center of the table. Want to avoid any interaction with the green 6, which he did. Everything else here pretty explanatory. He could play the 6 in the right middle, or just play it to the top right. He's going to the right middle. Less cue ball movement means less risk. Forward here. Carrying his angle. Maybe a little steeper than he wanted. He'll be able to get over this ball well. And once he gets over that cue ball, doesn't take him long to pull the trigger. So clean through the ball. Nice loose stroke, but there's a part of him that just seems very mechanical as well, or robotic. But it's not the stroke. And Labutis ties this match up at 5 apiece. And let me remind you that Gorst, although not the favorite, still in the running for the all-around. If Gorst wins this event, he will win the Master of the Table. Joshua Filler, the favorite right now for that. Well, folks, we've got a race to 4 for the money. Pijus did not get the 1 down last game, but he got something else down, got a good look at it. Wants the 1 in the left middle. Oh, and he's caught those way too thick. And he seemed like he was awfully quick in the final backswing. Does the 1 play to the lower right? He could really nudge him behind the 6 or even behind the 4 if he wanted. Oh, nicely done. Going into the 6 like that, I'm assuming the 2 has a pocket to the lower left. But it doesn't look straightforward. It looks quite tight to me. Is he going to draw out 2 rails? Or is he just going to hold the cue ball? Oh. Made it look easy. So the first couple shots of this rack, definitely a little tricky. 1 more good shot here to get on the 4. Everything opens up nicely. Yeah. The acceleration is perfect. The backswing is consistently the same, whether he's hitting the ball easy or with power. And that is the goal. Repetition. Everything the same. Look at where his Q-tip ends. Typically, it's always a 4 to 6 inch follow through. especially on shots that require a little bit more power. But even on a shot like that, his follow-through is easily 4 inches, and it's not easy to do that. It's repetition and practice, hard work. He wants the same delivery every single time. And that's the results you get when you're Fedor Gorst and you put the work in. Really letting the cue ball out there, punching 2 rails out. It's a good feeling for a rotation player. They can kind of let the stroke loose, get all that tension out of them. Nothing looks to be slowing Gorst down at the moment. And a very well-managed rack from early on. Tough shot on the 1 and on the 2. So in game number 11, Gorst, 6-5 lead. Shout out to PremierBilliards.com. Look them up. Gorst been pretty consistent with the 1 in the right middle.
Rack 12, Gorst to break, 6-5.
And he's got it down here. Is he going to get a look at the blue 2? He's not going to get a direct look at it. The 9 and the 8 in the way. And this rack rule is what's made this game more difficult for these elite players. There's no guarantee at a shot after the break. Therefore, you've got to be able to do more than just run out. You've got to understand the tactical side of the game. The push out is massive in rotation pool nowadays. If you can outthink your opponent, outkick your opponent, outsafe your opponent, you've got to have the whole package. Fedor does call the push out. Notice his cue just left of the top diamond on the left end. He made that look easy, just rolling the ball. Very difficult to contain the speed of that cue ball. I don't know if Labutis is going to take this. Fedor acted like it got away from him a little bit. Yeah, so Labutis is going to give this back. I think Gorst is going to have to swerve the cue ball a little bit here. If you can catch the top half of the Q2 ball, it'll finish up on the right long rail. You can get some type of a semi-defensive play out of it. But I also think he's got a chance to make this. And so I think he's just overamped it a little bit, but that has a lot to do with how he had to elevate. If he hits that about a quarter of the speed less, I think that ends up pretty safe, or maybe even behind the 9. Straightforward bank. Labutis has knocked it down. And I've mentioned prior in this match that Pijus has no losses. So if he can somehow squeeze this match out, you've got to make him one of the favorites to win this tournament, or at least get to the finals. Currently 7 players left in this round. I know Jason Shaw has no buyback. He drew filler. Pretty interesting Fargo difference here. Even though a lot of us up until this event didn't really know who Pijus is, he's a 799. His opponent, well, we all know who the superstar Fedor Gorst is. He's an 845. Labutis not going away. And after game number 12, we're tied up again. Yeah, and you'll notice really inspecting the rack, putting the work in, making sure those balls are touching. Wants the 1 to react true. Interesting. So he's gone to the left center now. He was playing the 1 to the left middle. Now he's put the cue ball in the left middle, playing the 1 to the right middle. Well, and he's overamped it, but the 9, 1 rail to the left middle, and that's going to count. We call that a golden break. At the most opportune of times, Labutis, the 7-6 lead, in what seems like eternity in this match since he's had the lead. As a matter of fact, I believe this is the first time he's taken the lead in the match. He's tied it up twice, once at 3-3, and then obviously at 6 apiece. And now, possibly looking for a rack change. We are playing with the Accu rack. None of these racks are invincible. They do get dented, kinked, bent. And oh yes, that will affect how they rack. Shout out to McDermott. The H-Series cue. Your struggle to get a perfect balanced cue is over. I think we've all owned a McDermott at one time or another. I know that was my very first cue. Going back to his initial spot on the break. Oh, and look at this. Did they get a rack change? And if they did it make a difference? Well, he's going to have a look at the 2. Is the 2-9 playable into the right middle? Or is that just too chancy? What do you do? It's kind of awkward to tuck behind the 4. As a matter of fact, I don't think you can just stick behind the 4 any way, shape, or form. Now looking at the 9. What does he have in mind? The extension's been applied. He's down to 10 seconds. Yeah, pretty clever. One railed the 2 over. He had a lot of good things that could happen. He's found the gap for Gorst, but Gorst doesn't have a pocket on the 2. Does he just try to roll him behind the 7? Or does he go further and send the 2 up to the top rail? Oh, boy. You've got to feel like he didn't aim there, so that cue ball might have drifted a little to the left. He's never going to aim to leave Pijus straight in, so that's a little unfortunate. But not if you're a Labutis fan. He's acting like he's fallen real straight on this ball, and you'll notice the 4 left of the 9 down here. Is he going to go forward and wrap around 2 rails? Nice. Very nice. Now he's simply got to avoid contact with the 8. Just tucked it 2 rails tight below the 8. Gorst leading this entire match pretty much so far. He's, like I said, been tied up at 3 apiece and 6 apiece. Now Labutis just seems to be pulling away. This could be a heartbreaker for Gorst. I do believe Filler has moved on. And I've received word that Shaw has unscrewed at some point in the match. So Filler will move on and advance to the next round. Do not have the results of Garcia and Patsura yet. But Labutis, 1 game away from advancing without a loss so far in the final event here at the Derby City. Did he get the rack change that he was looking for in the last game? We were just out of screen, or they were just out of screen, so I'm not certain. But he did ask for another rack. He went back to his original break position, got the 1 down, But he sure doesn't seem like he's struggling getting the balls frozen at this point versus a couple of games ago. Out of nowhere, it seems like Labutis has just taken control of this match, looking to get the 1 down. The 2 just behind the 1 in the top left. Oh, well, the 1 is short. The 6 is down. Does the 8 get out of the way? I believe he can make the 1. Wow. What a turn of events. Yeah, and I just got word that Vitali has beaten Roland Garcia. So Vitali Patsura will move on. This young man can play. Yeah, and it doesn't look like much is going to slow him down here. Doesn't want to catch any of the 7 going to the right middle with the 4. The 5 plays the top right. Patsura 4 balls away from advancing without a loss. And I believe this match could be a ticket into the finals, actually. All depending on this next draw. But I don't believe he's received a bye yet. Therefore, I think in the next 2 draws, he would have to get a bye. So I believe this is a ticket into the finals. If this gives you any idea of how he performs under the gun, that answers all those questions. Labutis, 1 ball away from advancing and a win over Gorst at 9-6 here in the ACCUSTATS arena. It's been an enjoyable match to call. He's going to get the win. I am your host, Scott Frost. Great sportsmanship by the one and only Fedor Gorst. Until next time, you all, thank you very much for tuning in.